Good morning. Kate here bringing you this week's Monday Mission. And this one is one of my favorites. So this is number 20. We have been together for 20 weeks, 20 Mondays, 20 missions. And I had decided that every 10th email, 10th video is going to be a question and answer session. So the reason I think this is awesome is because this gives you an opportunity to ask anything specific of the topics that I've gone over. If something maybe didn't resonate with you or needed more explanation, you have the opportunity to reach out. And then I also think there's just so much benefit to hearing other people's stories and what's coming up for other people to be able to apply that to your own life. So you may hear something on here and you're like, oh yeah, I feel the same way. And then, the question's answered for you. So I think it's just a super cool idea, and I really love doing these for you. So before I go into it, though, I did want to say that today's going to be the last day to answer the survey. I had sent out an email with a survey of 5 or 6 questions, I think, and everybody that responds in the survey and sends the responses back to me, I'm going to put them in a raffle to win a free gift. So I'm going to leave it open through tomorrow. Well, actually today. I'm recording this on Sunday. Monday, through the end of the day Monday. And then at the end of the day, I will choose from the people that responded to the survey, and I'll let you know if you are the one that gets the free gift. So I also put on that survey an opportunity to just have a conversation with me. We'll call it sort of a discovery session where we would chat about the different areas of your life and maybe where you're feeling stuck or where you would like to really just have some support and improve in, and then discuss what I have to offer and to see if I might be a right fit for you as a coach and if you might be the right fit for me as a client, and just see if that's something that we would, like to move forward with and working together. So it's no obligation. It's a free conversation. So make sure you answer on the survey if that's something that you'd like to do, and we'll set up a time to chat. Okay, so now that that's out of the way, we can get into the Q&As. And I had asked for some responses in that email on the survey, and then also just reaching out on social media to get an idea of where things are coming up for you guys and what are some topics that you'd like to talk about. So I narrowed it down to, I'm going to go over 6 questions or topics today that I pulled. Some of them were similar, so I pulled these, and I think that it's a nice range of different areas to cover. And then, like I said, I hope that this resonates with you. Either you have a similar situation that the person brought up, and then you can apply that to your life. And I do want to say, for those of you that respond to those polls and all those different things that I do, I appreciate you so, so much, because being self-aware and insightful of what's coming up for you and being humble enough to be like, yeah, this is like really coming up for me, or this is a thought I keep thinking, and I want to know how to change or learn how to have a different thought. I just think that is one of the bravest things to do. So I am so appreciative of those of you that respond and share with me. It's not lost on me how difficult that is. Okay, so the first one is about relationships, and this person shared that they do find themselves in their relationships saying things or having some thoughts as though feeling like I'm a better friend than the person is to me, or I love my husband more than he loves me. Those kinds of thoughts were coming up. And this person was so insightful, because they also shared that they often feel this way or start having these thoughts after they've been slighted or been hurt by the other person. And they even went on to say that they hate feeling this way. It's not a great feeling, right? But how cool is that she recognized that, because what can we do when we have feelings? We know what causes them, so we can work at this level and we can change the thought that is causing those feelings, right? That feeling of probably resentment that comes up when you feel that the other person is maybe not showing up the way that you are in the relationship. Okay, so those thoughts like I'm a better friend, I love him more than he loves me, not great feelings to have. What I want to offer to you is that those thoughts which lead to those feelings are coming up because they are a defense mechanism. Okay, so you mentioned that this happens when you feel slighted or something happened, in the relationship that you felt hurt by. This is your defense mechanism. Okay, it's your way of responding to something that feels like a threat. So being hurt by someone in your relationship threatens one of those basic human needs, which is belonging, right? Love and belonging. And you are a lot of times probably unconsciously reacting to that, like, my love and my belonging is going to be taken away from me, and you have a defense mechanism. You're ready to respond to that threat. And for you, it kind of shows up in this way, where you maybe start looking at things that they've done wrong, or how you do something better than they do. And it's all natural, normal to do this. We all do this as human beings. But where I would offer you to start is when that comes up for you, which again, you're already so aware that it comes up, which is a huge first step. Okay, so it comes up, and then we're just going to be curious. What meaning am I attaching to this, right? Why is this coming up for me? And recognizing that it's probably a defense mechanism. Okay, so this came up for me because I felt threatened, or I felt triggered by something that this other person said or did. How can I look at this thought, dissect it, break it down to really see what's going on? And what you might end up finding is that, let's say with a friend, that it does keep coming up, the thought that you are a better friend to them than they are to you. Once you really dig into that thought and why maybe that's coming up, you may decide, you know what, this is some information that lets me know that I need to have a boundary with this friend, because they really are, maybe overstepping or taking advantage of my kindness or my willingness to help, or whatever it might be. So maybe it leads to you needing to develop a boundary in that relationship. With your husband, break it down, dissect it, really go through that thought, keep asking why does this come up? What meaning am I attaching to this? Okay, to whatever it is that he did. And what you may find is that what you're really looking for is more connection with him. And that's coming across as you feeling like you love him more than he loves you, and he doesn't love you, and maybe it's because you really haven't had time together lately, or you haven't talked about things that are going on, and just are trying to brush it under the rug and go about your day. Whatever might come up with you, but that's where you always want to start, is awareness, curiosity. This is coming up for me. I know that this is a defense mechanism. So what am I perceiving? What meaning am I attaching to this? Okay, so that was that one, which I thought was a really, really, really great one. The next one I had asked about was kids. What's going on with kids? Any issues in raising kids that you wanted to bring up or talk about? And there were two that I was going to bring up that I think cover some great topics. So the first one was letting go and having them be independent. And this one is very, very difficult. I go through it myself, and mine are getting to that age. Parker's he's going to be 12, so preteen, and Brooks is getting out of that sort of little, baby kindergarten stage, right? So I'm definitely feeling this. And I think it really depends on the season in your life too. I mean, if you're having kids getting ready to go off to college, or in college and graduating and getting, moving on and getting their careers and having their own places and all that, there's different seasons of life to kids, and letting them go and having them be independent. And I think, again, it's another defense mechanism. If we find ourselves really trying to control what comes up for them, control doing things for them so that they don't have to feel that discomfort of not knowing what to do. It all comes from a wonderful place. It all comes from big hearts. We want to protect our kids. We don't want them to ever be uncomfortable or have difficulty or experience difficulty. But what we're actually doing is we are setting them up to have more difficulty than not. We're setting them up to have anxiety, not have self-trust, not believe in themselves, not think that they can complete things and do things on their own. So we actually want to do the opposite, to put our kids first, is we want to take this time when they're with us, when they have the support of us, they have the guidance of us, to let them try and make the mistakes. Let them do it and mess up, right? Let them have a natural consequence, and I have to tell myself this all the time. It's very difficult, like especially, friendships. I'll kind of want to say, oh, well, I think you should say this, and that's not being a very good friend if they say that to you. And I have to just really, really, really stop myself and tell myself to step back, let it happen. Now, obviously, we're not going to let them hurt other people, or we're not going to let them be hurt by others. But letting them have their feelings hurt or be called a name by a friend and see how they deal with it, or disagree with a friend and letting them work it out themselves to see what happens, is very important. Because if we continue to, call and make a doctor's appointment for them, or order for them at a restaurant, or return something at a store, if something doesn't fit, they need to return a certain size. Having them go up to the counter and the desk and at least start the conversation and say that, that you're returning something. And then if something comes up that they need the card or they don't have some, then you can be like, oh, okay, and just guide them through it. But letting them get comfortable with being uncomfortable is probably one of the biggest gifts we can give to our kids, and having them prove to themselves that they can do it. So that's what I wanted to say sort of about letting go. It's also about the meaning that we attach to it, which I think I could say that for everything that comes up. So for instance, if they don't get a great grade, a good grade on a test, what meaning are you attaching to that? Because if you're like me, the meaning that I attach to that is that I'm a horrible mother. Whoa. So I went from getting a C on something, to I'm a horrible mother. I make that leap in my head because it means I didn't study enough with them. I didn't make sure they got a good night's sleep. We forgot, to study that morning, or we could have reviewed a little bit more. Whatever it is, it all just goes and starts to spiral because of the meaning that I attached to them getting a C or whatever it is. So if you're attaching emotion and meaning to your kids struggling or not doing something right the first time, or not doing something well, or having difficulty with it, you are going to come from a place of wanting to fix it and jump in, because you don't want to have that feeling that you're not a good parent, right? So really being self-aware and thinking, why is this coming up for me? What meaning am I attaching to this, to whatever it is? Okay. The other one that came up with this was making decisions that impact your kids. So different things have come up about what vaccines to get, or if to get vaccines. If you have to move schools, or if you choose to move somewhere and you have to change schools for your child or your kids. I think just the pressure of having to make those decisions. And what I want to say to this is, it kind of goes back to the same thing, but it's what meaning are we attaching to that, right? So let's say that we move our kids from one school to a different school. And yes, education is important. The type of instruction that they get is very important. But are we coming from that all or nothing thinking, where them going to this school means, we completely change the direction of their life. They're not going to do well, and they're not going to graduate, which means they're not going to get a job, which means they're, not going to be successful. Or what meaning are we attaching to that? Because at the end of the day, school is part of our kids' day, and they're learning and they're becoming adults, but it's not everything. Right? It's not that all or nothing thinking. So if when you find that coming up for yourself, like, oh my God, I don't know if I made the right decision, and maybe I should have done it this way, and what if this happens because we just made this decision? If you can step back and say, I made this decision with the information that I had at the time, and I did my best to make the most educated decision for myself, my kids, my family, then it is what it is. It's the decision that we made. It is not all or nothing. It is not the end all be all. And trying to step back and because this is coming from, fear of the future. All right. So what meaning am I attaching to this by, putting that on the decision that I made? Okay. The other thing, or one of the other things that came up was I had asked about anxiety, and I gave some different scenarios that come up about anxiety, and the one was how to help someone else when they're feeling anxious. So I thought this was great that some of you had asked about when other people are feeling anxious, because we've sort of talked about ourselves, but this was asking, how do we support other people when they are experiencing anxiety? And I think one of the biggest things to do is to validate their feelings. So our tendency is to want to say, oh, it's okay. It's not that big of a deal. There's no need to worry. Just relax. And that does come from a great place. It really does. But what that says to that other person is, you shouldn't be having these feelings. They're not valid. You're overreacting. You're too sensitive. And then do you think they're going to share with you the next time that they're feeling a certain way? Probably not. They're going to probably push it down and try to cover it up and shame themselves for even having those feelings that are coming up. So I think one of the best things we can do is validate. And then another great thing to do is to just ask how you can best support them. All right. And sometimes they might not know, like especially kids, they may not know, but some things that I'll say to my own kids is I'll say, do you want to just kind of vent about this and just have me listen to what's going on? Or are you ready for a solution? Do you want me to help you problem solve? And then I leave it up to them and let them sort of guide, what happens next. Again, we don't want to attach a meaning to it. So especially if it's someone that you love, if it's one of your kids, and they're having anxiety, if you attach that meaning to, oh, if I was a better mom, if I had made things easier, if I didn't do this, if I had done this for them, then they wouldn't have anxiety over it. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Okay? Stop attaching meaning to it. Be in the moment with them. Recognize that anxiety and being anxious is part of the human experience. Validate their feelings. Ask them how to best to support them. And then one of the other best things to do is to help them co-regulate. So when someone is having anxiety, especially if they get into a full-blown anxiety attack, panic attack, their nervous system is completely dysregulated. And one of the greatest ways that you can help them in that moment is to co-regulate with them. Okay? So have them put their hand on your heart, you put your hand on their heart, and you just take deep breaths together, or you model for them. So for my one son, we did the hand breathing. So you breathe in when you go up and out when you go down. So I was that visual mirror for him on how to do that. I wasn't talking to him. I wasn't telling him how to change his thoughts and because he's in his brainimal, right? He's in his animal part of the brain. He can't be up here in the thinking brain and processing what he should do and that he shouldn't be anxious and all of that. Those shoulds, and it's not going to be helpful. It's not going to be productive. So if worse comes to worse, help them co-regulate. Okay. One of the next ones was sort of the person is finding themselves compulsively on a topic. So maybe it's politics. Maybe it's COVID and what's going on with the vaccine and just everything that's going on. It could be anything. It could be any topic that you're sort of just always thinking about, always trying to get information about, always trying to figure out what's going on. And I don't know, I'd have to have more specifics for this, but it is coming from a place of fear, right? So again, a lot of our reactions to things are coming from that survival part of us that feels threatened. So in this case, your safety may feel threatened, right? That's one of the other basic human needs that when we feel threatened, we have reactions to. So you may feel like your safety is being threatened because you need to know all of the information, because if you don't know everything that's going on up to date at the last minute, then that potentially threatens the safety of you and your family, right? And it may go back to your childhood. If you were someone that really had to be independent and had to sort of grow up quickly and make sure that you knew what was going on for the day because there really wasn't anybody else, doing that for you or with you, then I could understand, where that feeling to know everything that's coming up so you can plan for everything and you can have an answer to any kind of scenario that may come up for you. So think back to your childhood. Think about why this comes up for you. Think about another time in your life when you felt this way and what are the similarities. And it really may help you dig down into, this is a defense mechanism for you and why is this the one that you choose to go to? And then I would just go back to asking yourself, is this productive? Right? So is me sort of obsessing and compulsively taking in all of this information, is that productive? Or can I say to myself, I'm going to choose one or two reputable sources. I'm going to look to those every other day, twice a week, and get my information from there. And then base my decisions on, whatever's going on with those reputable sources that you have. But understanding that the compulsion, the having to feel it and find it out, know all of the information, try to figure out where that comes from for you, and then recognize that it's just not a productive, it's not serving you, right, to do that. And the last one I want to bring up is making yourself a priority. So this is something that I think is difficult for a lot of us. And again, it goes back to what meaning do you attach to you taking time for yourself and making yourself a priority? What comes up for you? You really want to unravel this. Okay. We all know that self-care is important. We all know that we should be eating healthy foods, and we should be sleeping 8 hours a night, and we should be drinking water, and we should be moving our body. Everybody knows that, but why aren't you making that a priority for yourself? Does it come back to your self-worth? Do you feel like you're not worthy of that time, of that, putting yourself first? Do you make it mean that if you're doing something for yourself, then that means you're taking away from someone else? You're taking away from your loved ones? Is that what it means to you? Because if that's the case, really go back to what meaning you're attaching to it. And then recognize that putting yourself first and taking that time for self-care is a value of yours. It's like they all say, you got to put the oxygen mask on yourself first. You can't pour from an empty cup. We all hear this every day, right? We all know this, but why don't we do it? And it's often because of the meaning that we attach to it. So really go back and dive in and think, when you think about making yourself a priority, why don't you? What comes up for you? Do you start to have thoughts, oh, well, then I won't be able to take the kids to this thing that I wanted to do, or then I won't be able to volunteer on Saturday, and I promised the church that I would do that. So really dig deep into see what's coming up for you. So that first step is always to just be aware and curious, and then really dissect and dig deep of what's coming up, and be honest with yourself. It's super humbling because there are some thoughts that you are not going to like very much. And that's okay. It's normal. We all have them. So truly be honest with yourself about what the thoughts are that are coming up, because that's when you can really figure out how we need to break them down and how we can possibly reframe them and change them. Okay, I hope this was helpful. I loved all these questions and everyone sharing with me. So, hope this was a good one for you. As always, message me. Let me know how you felt about this one, what comes up for you, and I hope you have a great day. Thanks.